Can you hear me? Perfect. I am Abhishek, and I worked on Commons Keeper. I won't bore all of you with my intro because I have limited time. But I've been very intrigued and sort of interested in how cooperative language models are. And therefore, I thought I would use the 6 weeks at Lossfunk to sort of test how cooperative language models are. Satpal, who's sitting there, he also worked with me. He refuses to come here and join the scene with me, but we worked on this together. So, yeah, I mean, in the course of the next 20 minutes, I'll probably bore all of you with a little bit of the history of cooperation. That's going to be the boring part, and then we will jump straight to what we did. Who knows who this guy on the left is? Anyone? Huh? No. Sorry. No, that's Charles. It's natural selection. Charles Darwin. Yeah. No. The other one, the bearded guy. Right. So Charles Darwin, we know him is popular for the theory natural selection, survival of the fittest, competition. Whenever we think of these theories, we go back to Charles Darwin. He basically said that the most aggressive and the most competitive species eventually go on win, survive, and they pass on their genes. 4 weeks back, I read this book by a guy called Frank Ryan. He basically said that Darwin had a big blind spot in his theory, and that competition is not the only form of evolution. Collaboration and cooperation played a very big role in it. And he went on to give examples from biology to animals, societies, and to sort of different examples on why some of the most meticulous, important discoveries on Earth were formed as a part of cooperation. I was a big Darwinist myself, but after I read that book, I went down a deep rabbit hole, and I went on to sort of find that cooperation has played a very, very big role in our evolution. We know of evolution as basically two things: mutation, which creates variation, and natural selection, which decides the winners. But cooperation is probably the third pillar of evolution. And if you look at all these examples, they were all form of cooperation, starting from cells, genomes, animal societies, languages. So it's fair to say that cooperation is the master architect of evolution and not just competition. If some examples of cooperation, you look at worker ants. I don't know if you've observed them very closely, but they tend to sacrifice themselves to let the queen reproduce rather than them reproducing to survive the colony. Vampire sharing bats, they share blood with other vampire with an intent to get direct reciprocity from the other bat. Meerkats are wild animals who basically, like, one of them will go and look for predators and scavengers, and will sort of inform the crew, and in return they will risk themselves. There are many more examples of cooperation in humans, open source software. Business partnerships are a form of direct reciprocity. There are means of cooperation in the form of indirect reciprocity. I'm not going to bore you with cooperation. If you're interested in reading more about the history, these are the guys. These are some of the most prominent thinkers who worked on cooperation in the last century. I think, I would basically say, like, this guy, sort of created evolutionary game theory. We all know John von Neumann, who is the father of game theory. And then what we will we worked on is heavily influenced by this woman. She got a Nobel Prize for defining how cooperation emerges in a group in a self-governant manner without involving external individuals. So I'm going to bore you, but why are we talking about cooperation? I feel that as we move into a society, a world where AI sort of takes a larger and larger role. It's already doing everything in the digital world. Probably 5 years, 10 years from now, it's going to do everything in the physical world. And in a world which is increasingly dominated by artificial intelligence, it's very important to sort of understand if they possess these cooperative abilities. I was very curious by how language models perform today. Do they tend to have what are the conditions under which they cooperate? Does more reasoning lead to more cooperation? Does less reasoning lead to more cooperation? I don't know. So I went on and we did a lot of research. We created a digital world. We simulated a world. Monty, can you play the video? In a 3D environment, this is the video. Can you play full screen? Great. So what we did was we created this world. We put 5 agents in the world. We basically created 3 phases: planning, harvesting, and the third phase is discussion. You see, this is the harvesting phase. There is a lake. This is the lake where the agents go and they harvest. They have to go and harvest fish. So, the lake has a capacity of 1,000 fish. If anyone harvests more than, if the lake capacity sort of goes to zero, the lake collapses and therefore everyone collapses. So everyone has to sort of operate in a way where the lake does not collapse. They have to cooperate with each other. And all of these agents are represented by language models, right? So in the discussion phase, they go back, they fish, they go back, and then they negotiate with each other. Who fished how much? Should we fish? Should we not? All of these things, right? So we created this digital world. They're all walking all by themselves. We're not walking them. We built pathfinding into these into the world, and what we found was super surprising. I'd love to sort of move on, but yeah, we've already covered this. The world has 3 phases: planning, harvesting, discussion. The role of the agents is to maximize their individual gain while ensuring that the lake survives for as long as they can. Yeah, okay. These are the fishers. These are the LLMs we benchmarked. We took a combination of open and closed source models, reasoning, non-reasoning models, and we took all of them and we thought, okay, let's try to benchmark and see how do they stand in cooperation. And yeah, so in the first result, in the planning phase, we created a single shot planning prompt. We call it the baseline prompt. We did not give the agent a lot of information around whether they should, what kind of cooperation should they do, tit for tat, this, that. We just gave them a goal. And we found that most of the models failed. Some of the reasoning models that you see here, they eventually survived 80% of the times, which means we did 5 runs together for each model. Each run was represented by, all the agents were represented by the same model. So one run, when we did, for example, each run we had like GPT-4o, 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 GPT-4o. So 5 agents represented by the same model. And then we did this for all of these models. And we got this result. And we thought, okay, great. Probably models with higher reasoning are more cooperative, right? If you look at this graph, the x-axis is the number of cycles they survive. The y-axis is the lake stock. So if you see this one, plot 3.5 seems to be surviving, whereas these are the non-surviving models: Meta, DeepSeek, Mistral, Coin 32 billion, OpenAI 4 mini, GPT-4 mini, all of them. Whereas these are surviving models. So I was very curious about why are they surviving? What is it? Do these models have inherent capabilities of social intelligence that would allow them to survive? And we basically we induced a chain of thought in their prompt where we said, hey, break down your goal into 5 steps instead of trying to give an answer in a single shot. Give us an answer after breaking down your prompt into specific goals, and we infuse a tit for tat mentality in the prompt, which is behave as if how other agents would perform. And we got some improvement we got some delta in the performance, which Mistral improved by 20 basis points, Gemini 2.5 Flash improved by 40 basis points, Gemini 2.5 Flash Thinking improved by 40 basis points, Llama went down by 80 basis points. So, okay, on an absolute basis, when we increase reasoning or we increase chain of thought, it increases performance. Great. But when we dug deeper, we found that higher reasoning did not lead to higher social intelligence. The results were actually worse off than the results we saw with baseline prompts. And if you see this graph, if you see all of these graphs, the orange line is represented by the baseline prompt and the green line is represented by the chain of thought prompt, which sort of gave us the conclusion that if we increase higher chain of thought thinking and their ability to reason more, it did not lead to good performance, which sort of correlates with the thinking around prisoner's dilemma, that a rational thinker will tend to defect and an irrational thinker will tend to cooperate. It sort of validated our hypothesis that reasoning does not correlate to performance. And then we did something interesting. We said, okay, let's take these models, these surviving models, and try to do another round of ablation. And we introduced a greedy LLM in their mix. So now 4 LLMs are the surviving models and 1 LLM is a greedy model, which is a model which did not survive. The result? None of them survived. We did 5 runs, not a single model survived. They collapsed in every single run. By the way, Gemini 2.5 Flash, if we go back here, if you see here, Gemini 2.5 Flash had a 100% survival rate. As soon as I induced one greedy model in the Gemini 2.5 Flash group, the survival rate dropped to 0. Right? We thought, okay, great. Let's do something more interesting. Let's add, this is probably a fluke. Let's try and do another run. We then added DeepSeek R1 with Gemini 2.5 Flash. Results somewhat similar. It survived once, so probably a 20% survival rate, but the results were more or less, they basically collapsed. So what we did based on this data is we created a social landscape of reasoning. The y-axis is cooperation and greed, and the x-axis is reasoning capability. And we created this landscape based on whatever limited data we have. And it seems Claude 3.7 is probably most cooperative. It's on the upper right quadrant. The ones on this quadrant are models that are less cooperative, greedy, low reasoning. This quadrant, less cooperative, greedy, high reasoning. So a lot of these models that you see are high reasoning, but not very well cooperative. And nobody sort of stands here. Take this with a pinch of salt. This is not the final. We'll keep running more experiments and we'll keep testing our data. But this is the result of the last 6 weeks of us spending time at Lossfunk. We also saw some really interesting emergent behaviors, during the runs. We saw DeepSeek R1 as an agreement breaker. It would basically go on and say, hey, I agree with you in the discussion phase, and then it would go back and it would disagree, and it could do whatever it wanted to on its own without taking into account what others would do. We saw O4 Mini doing a lot of rapid escalation to just end it. O4 Mini knew that, the lake's not going to survive. I'm going to maximize my personal gain, and I'll go and harvest whatever I can. And if you read these prompts, you probably understand how they're thinking. The monologue is the part where they're thinking, right? So if you see here, I choose plan C. While risky, the agent's history of over-harvesting and the lake's precarious state suggests collapse is inevitable. Trusting that 6 fish pledges is unwise. Harvesting 150 now secures a large immediate catch, even if others defect similarly. The lake's collapse would still yield a high personal total. You see this? All of this is generated by LLMs. Like these are not responses that we've generated on our own. Yeah, there was cascade of greed and inquiry. One person sort of initiated greed, and then everyone started being greedy. Lama 70 billion sort of came out as a diplomat. My apologies, everyone. I seem to have miscalculated and took 10 fish when we agreed on 5. It was an error, and I commit to being more careful. The stock is now at 60, which is very low. We absolutely must reduce our take. I agree with the proposal of 3 fish each for the next round. So you see, they are figuring out things all by themselves. There is some form of norm behavior, but for some reason or the other, the models are not surviving, right? DeepSeek R1, it says, I want to be greedy. The lake is at 132. If all agents take 28 again, total harvest is 100, leaving 32. After 10% regeneration, next cycle stock will be 35. I can take the remaining 52, causing immediate collapse, but maximizing my total harvest. Sustaining the lake further yields lower future gains. So they are calculating their payoffs, and then they are deciding what it should do. It means that all of these models are not optimizing for long-term gain, they are optimizing for short-term gain. And therefore, my thesis is that we have a lot of more. We have benchmarks around coding, we have benchmark around reasoning, we have benchmark around coding, math, all of that. We need benchmarks for social intelligence. We need benchmark for cooperation. An AI that aces a math test but fails the society, fails cooperation, will eventually fail the society. And it's essential for AIs to sort of pass the cooperation test and the social intelligence test. Cooperation was such an integral piece of the evolution of history. If we create a new technology, which is a new form of evolution of humans, it should pass the cooperation test, and we should not take it for granted that AI is going to be cooperative. In the future, AI is going to rule hospitals, schools, colleges, our world. It should pass the cooperation test, and yeah, that's it. That's my conclusion for today. And thank you so much, everyone. I want to thank Baras. I want to thank Monty, Saurabh, Lossfunk. I feel like the last 4 weeks, 6 weeks were really well spent. I think the ability to sort of work on a hard problem within a small time frame, it just condenses you to work very hard. I don't know how the last 6 weeks passed. We were just working. Reading papers, reading about the history of cooperation, reading about all of this. So I would highly recommend everyone trying, join Lossfunk if you want to work on meaningful problems, hard problems. I think it's an amazing group of high intellectual, smart, intelligent group. And yeah, I would say my last 6 weeks were really well spent. So thank you so much.